Okay, so once again, good day everyone. Our discussion focuses on the theories, models, and style of educational leadership. No? So these concepts actually help us understand why educational leaders have differently and why a leadership approach that succeed in one school may not produce the same results in another. Ano po? Leadership is not simply about giving instruction. It is about influencing people, establishing direction, and creating the condition necessary for meaningful teaching and learning. The praise from directing people to mobilizing a learning of the organization reflects the continuing evolution of educational leadership. Traditional leaders were often expected to control activities and shared com compliance. No? Contemporary leaders, however, are expected to engage teachers, students, parents, and community partners in pursuing shared goals because they do not merely manage people. No? They mobilize the entire organization toward continuous learning and institutional improvement. When we say that leadership is not a title, we recognize that a formal position does not automatically make a person an effective leader. A school principal, dean, coordinator, or department chair may possess authority, but genuine leadership becomes evident not only when that person can influence others positively. Leadership is demonstrated through actions, relationships, decisions, and the ability to inspire people to work toward a meaningful educational purpose. In education, that influence should ultimately be directed toward learning, people, and purpose. No? So learning refers to the academic and personal development of students, while people include teachers, staff members, parents, and other stakeholders. Purpose refers to the school mission and the values it seeks to uphold. A leader becomes truly effective when these three dimensions are balanced instead of allowing administrative concern to overshadow the institution educational mission. So by the end of our discussion, we should be able to differentiate the major theories of educational leadership, and it is not enough to memorize the names of theories. We must understand what each theory emphasizes. Trait theory focuses on the qualities of leaders. Behavioral theory examines what leaders do. Contingency theory considers the situation, and distributed leadership recognizes leadership as a collective responsibility. We should also be able to predict how particular leadership approaches may affect organization, select a style appropriate for to a given context, and apply leadership models to actual school situation. And these outcomes require analysis rather than simple recall. As graduate students and present or future educational administrators, we must learn to ask what is happening in the organization. What do the people need? And which leadership response is most ethical and effective under the circumstances? Leadership thinking has evolved considerably over time. At early perspective, frequently viewed leadership as the work of an exceptional individual who possess special qualities and exercise authority over followers. This was sometimes called the great person view of leadership. Under this perspective, organizational success was attributed mainly to the intelligence, courage, confidence, or charisma of the person at the top. Contemporary perspective recognized that leadership is more complex. Effective leadership depends not only on the leader's personality, but also on relationships, organizational culture, follower needs, available resources in changing environmental conditions. Leadership has therefore moved from command to context, from asking who is the stronger leader to asking what kind of leadership does this situation require and who has the expertise to provide it. Classical leadership and management theories emphasize order, structure, and organizational reliability. Scientific management concentrate on efficiency and the systematic organization of work. Administrative theory focuses on coordinating major organizational function, while bureaucracy promotes formal authority. Okay, formal authority, written rules, clearly defined responsibilities, and consistent procedures. These ideas remain visible in school calendars, reporting systems, job description, promotion policies, and quality assurance processes. Human relation theories later reminded organizations that employees are not simply instrument of production. Teachers and staff members have emotional, social, and professional needs. Let's say, for example, no, a technically efficient school may still experience poor performance if teachers feel unappreciated or excluded. Classical structures are valuable because they create stability, but they must be combined with humane relationship, professional respect, and sensitivity to the experiences of the people who make the school functions. Theory or trait theory asks, what personal qualities distinguishes effective leaders? Among the commonly identified traits are integrity, confidence, resilience, and cognitive capacity. Integrity allows stakeholders to trust that the leader's decisions are ethical and consistent. Because confidence enables the leader to act decisively, while resilience helps the leader remain focused when facing conflict, criticism, limited resources, or unexpected institutional challenges. Cognitive capacity refers to a leader's ability to understand complex information, analyze problems, and anticipate consequences. Nevertheless, possessing desirable traits does not guarantee successful leadership. A competent leader who lacks humility may become authoritarian, while an intelligent leader who lacks integrity may misuse institutional authority. Trait theory is therefore useful for leadership selection and development, but personal qualities must still be translated into responsible and context-sensitive action. Behavioral theories shift attention from who the leader is to what the leader actually does. Because two major categories are task behavior and relationship behavior. Task behavior includes establishing objectives, assigning duties, setting deadlines, monitoring work, and ensuring that the standards are met. Relationship behavior includes listening, encouraging, consulting, mentoring, and creating an atmosphere of respect and trust. So, these ideas are also represented by initiating structure and consideration. Initiating structure refers to organizing work and clarifying expectation, while consideration concern the leader's sensitivity to people. An effective school leader must balance both, no? Too much task orientation may create pressure and resentment, while too much relationship orientation without accountability may weaken performance. So effective leadership involves caring for people while remaining committed to educational standards. Situational and contingency leadership. these perspectives emphasize that no leadership style is universally best. Dapat alam po natin yan. A highly participative approach may be appropriate during curriculum planning, but it may be impractical during an immediate safety emergency. Similarly, delegation may work well with an experienced academic team, but may overwhelm beginning teachers who still need guidance and support. Leadership effectiveness, therefore, depends on the fit among the leaders, your followers, tasks, and environment. The leader must examine people capabilities, the urgency of the problem, institutional culture, available resources, and possible risk. So this requires flexibility and sound judgment. So effective leaders do not change style merely to please everyone. They adjust their approach thoughtfully because different condition calls for different forms of leadership. Situational leadership proposes that leaders should match the amount of direction in support they provide with the readiness of their followers. No? So when employees have limited competence or experience, a directing style may be necessary. The leader explains what must be done, establishes clear standards, and closely monitor progress. As competence develops, the leader may shift toward coaching by providing both direction and encouragement. When followers are capable but uncertain, the leader can use a supporting style by listening, encouraging participation, and strengthening confidence. When followers are both capable and committed, delegation becomes appropriate. For instance, an experienced research coordinator may require broad authority rather than continuous supervision. The important lesson, my beloved student here, is that leadership support should change as the professional readiness of individuals or teams changes. Contingency leadership requires us to read the entire situation between choosing an approach. Kasi po, one important factor is the quality of leader, member relations. If trust is strong, the leader can open use consultation or delegation. If relationships are damaged, even a reasonable decision may be resisted. Another factor is task structure. Routine tasks are easier to regulate, while ambiguous and creative tasks require greater dialogue and professional judgment. Position power, environmental condition, and the level of risk must also be considered. A principal may have formal authority to implement a policy, but responsible leadership still requires attention to how that policy will affect teachers and learners. So contingency leaders does not provide one permanent formula. Instead, it challenges leaders to diagnose conditions carefully and select the approach most likely to produce ethical and sustainable results. Kuraway. Okay. Transactional leadership is based on clarity, exchange, and accountability. The leader establishes expectation, monitor performance, ano pa ba? Rewards satisfactory achievement, and correct deviation. In a school perspective, this can include performance targets, deadlines, recognition programs, faculty evaluation, attendance requirements, and improvement plans. So this approach is particularly useful when task standards and responsibilities must be clearly defined. However, transactional leadership should not become the sole basis of educational leadership. People may comply with requirements without becoming genuinely committed to the institution mission. Teacher may submit reports on time but remain disengaged from innovation and improvement. Transactional practices are valuable for maintaining standards, but they should be combined with professional development, shared purpose, trust, and opportunities for meaningful participation. Distributed and shared leadership. Distributed and shared leadership recognize that leadership can become a collective organizational capacity. A school is too complex to lead effectively by one or only one person. A school or teachers, no, coordinators, meron tayong guidance personnel, librarians, researchers, and community partners possess different forms of expertise. No? Leadership becomes stronger when these abilities are identified, developed, and connected to institutional priorities. This does not mean that formal leaders abandon their responsibility. Instead, they create structures through which others can contribute responsibly. A principal may authorize a technology committee to lead digital learning initiative, while an experienced teacher leads literacy improvement. Shared leadership expands the school problem-solving capacity and reduces dependence on a single administrator, provided that rules, decision rights, and accountability remain clear. The distributed leadership allows expertise to lead regardless of a person's formal rank. In curriculum implementation, let's say, for example, the person with the strongest subject knowledge may guide the team even if that person is not the department head. And this approach values teacher leadership, shared responsibilities, or shared responsibility, interdependence practice, and the contribution of different professional groups. Nevertheless, shared responsibilities or shared leadership must be accompanied by collective accountability. Team members should understand who recommends, who approves, who implements, and who evaluates each decision. So, without these distinctions, distributed leadership can result in confusion or duplicated work. When properly organized, however, it develops future leaders, increases professional ownership, and transforms leadership from an individual privilege into a shared commitment to student success. Participative leadership gives stakeholder a meaningful voice in decision or decision making. Rather than making every decision alone, the leader consults teachers, students, parents, and relevant partners. The purpose is not simply to make people feel included. It is to improve decision by incorporating information, experience, and perspective that the formal leader may not possess. Participation should still be structured and transparent. Stakeholders need to know which matters are open for consultation and who holds final decision-making authority. Let's say, for example, a teacher may contribute to the design of an assessment policy, but the school administration must ensure compliance with legal and institutional standards. Participative leadership builds trust and ownership when consultation is genuine and leaders clearly explain how final decisions were reached. Bureaucratic and system perspective. The bureaucratic and system perspective remind us that schools require both dependable structure and an understanding of a relationship. Rules, procedures, authority, and documentation create stability. Without them, decision may become inconsistent. Resources may be misused and stakeholders may be treated differently. School must maintain reliable processes for enrollment, assessment, promotion, finance, safety, and personnel management. At the same time, schools are a system in which every part affects the others. A change in scheduling can influence teacher workload, room utilization, student attendance, transportation, and family routines. Therefore, educational leaders must avoid looking at policies in isolation. So sound leadership respect necessary procedures while examining how each decision may create consequences throughout the large organization. The bureaucratic perspective emphasizes formal authority, standard procedures, documentation, and accountability. So this element helps protect fairness by ensuring that similar cases are treated according to consistent standard. For instance, admission requirements, grading policies, faculty workload rules, and procurement processes should not change merely according to personal relationship or preferences. No, bureaucracy becomes problematic when compliance is treated as more important than educational purpose. No, excessive paperwork, slow approvals, and rigid interpretation may prevent schools from responding to urgent learner needs. The challenge is not to remove all rules, but to design procedures that are lawful, efficient, transparent, and supportive of learning. A good administrator uses bureaucracy to safeguard fairness, not to avoid responsibility or suppress professional judgment. System perspective. The system perspective encourages educational leaders to see patterns rather than isolated problems. So every school receives inputs such as a student, teacher, facilities, finances, technology, policies, and community expectation. So these inputs pass through teaching, learning, and administrative processes, producing outcomes such as student achievement, graduation, employability, research productivity, and stakeholder satisfaction. Feedback then helps the organization determine whether changes are needed. If student performance declines, a system-oriented leader does not immediately blame teachers. So the leader examine curriculum alignment, study, student support, assessment practice, attendance, learning resources, and family conditions. So this perspective promotes deeper problem solving because it considers root causes and interdependence instead of reacting only to visible symptoms. No? Leadership style gradually become part of the school climate. A directive style can produce speed and clarity, especially during emergency. But constant direction may create dependence. A democratic style can strengthen ownership and trust, although consultation requires time. No? A laissez-faire style may support autonomy among highly capable professionals, but insufficient guidance can also result in drift and inconsistent performance. Adaptive leadership seek an appropriate fit between the approach and the context. Its advantage is flexibility, but it demands careful diagnosis and clear communication. Kasi po, if leaders frequently change their behavior without explaining why, possibly po, people may interpret flexibility as inconsistency. So, the leader must therefore help stakeholders understand why a particular situation require greater direction, consultation, support, and or delegation. Okay. Leaders should select their style deliberately rather than acting only according to habit. Ano po? Paalala. Some leaders naturally prefer control, while others prepare consultation or delegation. Personal preference is understandable, but it should not determine every decision. A leader who always consults may respond too slowly during a crisis, while a leader who always directs may discourage initiative and professional growth. Effective leaders build a repertoire of approaches. Before acting, they ask whether the situation requires speed, expertise, participation, emotional support, or strict compliance. They also consider the likely short and long-term consequences of their approach. The central question is not which leader style is the best, but which style is most appropriate, ethical, and educationally sound in this particular situation. Before selecting a style, leaders must diagnose important situational factors. Urgency and risk determine how quickly a decision must be made. Follower capability indicates whether people need detailed guidance, coaching, support, or autonomy. Task complexity affects the amount of expertise and collaboration required, while organizational culture and trust influence how stakeholders will interpret and respond to leadership decisions. Policy constraints must also be recognized because some decisions are governed by laws, regulations, and institutional requirements. Other relevant considerations include the stakeholder impact and the availability of time and resources. Let's say, for example, a safety emergency requires immediate direction, while a 5-year strategic plan deserves broad consultation. Diagnosis enables leaders to select a response based on evidence instead of a personal comfort or routine. So each theory makes a valuable contribution while also presenting limitation. Classical theory creates order but can become rigid. No? Trait theory helps identify desirable leadership equalities but may promote the mistaken belief that one heroic individual is responsible for organizational success. Behavioral theory shows that leadership practices can be learned and coached, although a behavior effective in one context may not work equally well in other. Contingency theory promotes fit but requires careful diagnosis. No? Transactional leadership support execution but may produce compliance without commitment. Distributed leadership expand organizational capacity but may blur accountability when roles are unclear. And this limitation do not mean that the theories should be rejected. Instead, you as leaders should use them as complementary lenses, drawing from each according to the needs of the situation. Let's say, for example, case number 1, let's say typhoon closure. You just try to imagine that a severe typhoon threatens the community and the school must decide whether to suspend activities. During the immediate emergency, directed leadership is appropriate. The leader must communicate quickly, assign responsibilities, secure facilities, coordinate with authorities, and protect students and employees. Lengthy consultation could delay a decision and place people at unnecessary risk. Once the immediate danger has passed, the leader can shift toward participative leadership. Teachers, students, parents, staff can help assess learning losses, facility damage, communication problems, and recovery needs. This case shows that leadership style can change across the phases of one event. Direction may protect people during the crisis, while participation can improve recovery and institutional learning afterward. Case number 2, let's say curriculum redesign. Curriculum redesign requires distributed expertise because no single administrator possesses all the necessary knowledge. Subject teachers understand content and classroom realities. A student can describe learning experiences. Industry representative can identify emerging competencies, and administrator can ensure alignment with policy institutional mission, and available resources. A democratic process can encourage meaningful participation, but decision rights must remain clear. Stakeholders should know who gathers evidence, who recommend revisions, who approves the curriculum, and who oversees implementation. Distributed and participative leadership do not mean that every person decides everything. They mean that relevant expertise and stakeholder voices are used systematically to create a responsive, coherent, and implementable curriculum. Another case study is an underperforming teacher. When a teacher is underperforming, the leader should not immediately choose punishment or public criticism. Behavioral coaching can help identify the specific practices that need improvement, such as lesson planning, classroom management, assessment, or student engagement. The leader can observe classes, provide concrete feedback, demonstrate effective strategies, and arrange mentoring or professional development. A fair transactional improvement plan should accompany the coaching process, expectation support mechanism, timelines, evidence, and consequences must be clearly documented. So, this protects both the teacher and the institution. The goal should be improvement rather than humiliation, but compassion should not eliminate accountability, because ethical leadership gives the teachers a genuine opportunity to improve while protecting students' right to quality education. High-performing team. A high-performing team usually does not need continuous supervision. Its members already possesses competence, commitment, and a strong record of result. In this situation, delegation can strengthen motivation and enable the team to make timely decisions. Excessive control may communicate distrust and prevent talented professionals from using their creativity and judgment. Delegation, however, is not abandonment. The leader must maintain alignment by clarifying expected outcomes. Dapat ano yung ethical boundaries, ano yung available resources, at syempre yung reporting arrangement. Regular checkpoints can preserve accountability without micromanaging the team. You as leader roles shift from controlling daily activities to removing obstacles, securing resources, maintaining strategic direction, and recognizing excellent performance. Policy compliance often requires a bureaucratic approach because policy compliance often requires a bureaucratic approach because schools must apply regulation consistently. Formal procedures, meron pwedeng documentation, designated authority, and audit trails protect the institution and its stakeholders. Whether the policy concerns student records, faculty qualifications, data privacy, safety, or financial management, leaders must ensure that requirements are clearly understood and properly implemented. System thinking is equally important because compliance decision can have wider consequences. A new documentation requirement may increase staff workload, slow services, or required additional technology training. Okay, technology training. So the leader should therefore comply with the policy while studying how implementation affects the entire institution. Because effective compliance is not simply the completion of forms, it is the responsible integration of standards into daily organizational practice. Now, the central message of this topic is that the best educational leaders build a repertoire. They do not depend on one theory of style. No? They understand classical structure, develop positive traits, practice effective behaviors, analyze situation, maintain accountability, distribute expertise, and encourage responsible participation. Their leadership becomes flexible without becoming directionless. No? So as we conclude this topic. Let us remember 3 essential action. Ano-ano yon? Read the context, choose ethically, and learn from the effects of our decision. No? Leadership is an ongoing cycle of diagnosis, action, reflection, and improvement. The closing question is therefore highly practical. Which leadership style does your school need next and why? Our answer should be based not only on what is comfortable for the leader, but on what will best serve learners, educators, the institution, and the wider community. Okay? So I think that's it for our module number 2 or topic number 2. Thank you so much for listening and looking forward that you have at least relearned to what I have discussed. Okay? And good afternoon.